Hello fellow captains, my name is TheFerretArmy. Welcome to the first episode of The Learning Curve. This is a series primarily aimed at helping the new players learn how to play the game better. And this can also apply to some of the older, more veteran players and the players that quit the game and maybe are trying to give it a second chance but need a little bit of a push in the right direction. I'm going to give a quick disclaimer on my skill. I'm sitting at about 7,000 battles with 1,300, 1,350-ish WTR. So I'm definitely a better player than most, but I'm not the best. And that's completely alright. I'm just helping, or I'm trying to help people at least get up to my level and then figure out how to get better from there, because I'm doing the same. If you're unfamiliar with how WTR works, it's a metric used by a website called Warships Today. And the idea of the metric is that it takes some of your average stats, like your win rate, your damage, your kills, and does a bit of calculations, gives you a rating based on those calculations. And this can be half of the key to figure out how good of a player you are and can be. But the other half comes from knowledge of the mechanics in the game and experience on how to apply them. So let's get into that. Some of the expected roles for you in the game they seem kind of clear-cut, but just in case we're missing some things, we'll talk about them. We have the four main classes of ships. We have destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and aircraft carriers. Destroyers, your scouts, your intel gathering machines. You have the ability to land these amazingly large crippling hits with your torpedoes on pretty much any ship, depending on the type of torpedo you're using, that is. And you have the ability to provide a lot of advantage through who you are and how flexible you can be, how nimble you are, how mobile you can be. You can get from one side of the map to the other much quicker than a lot of other ships can, and you have the ability to contest the caps in most cases, but don't get too ahead of yourself. Always make sure that maybe the team is somewhere behind you, and if you really have to go it alone, then be careful about doing so. Cruisers, you're a little bit less flexible in terms of mobility, but what you lack up in mobility you make up for in some gun power and ability for laying down fire support. You can knock out destroyers much easier than maybe a destroyer versus destroyer fight, and you can come out with a lot more health as a result of it, as long as you don't eat a torpedo. And you have a lot of flexibility in terms of playstyle and what you can intend to achieve. You can be a AA escort, you can be a cap contester, you can be a DD hunter. I mean, you can be quite a few different things, depending on your ship, depending on your playstyle, and depending on what you intend to achieve over the course of the game. You might not be as armored as a battleship, and consequently that can lead to you getting pretty well devastated, kind of like this Henri, who took all 12 hits from my Zell. Pretty spicy. But you still have a advantage in some scenarios with your mobility that is better than most battleships by far, and your larger health pool than a destroyer. And as far as battleships go, you're the tank. You're supposed to soak up damage for the team. That health pool that you have, the really large health pool that's usually much higher than every other ship around you, that's for soaking up the damage. You are supposed to get in there and scratch the paint a little bit and get a little rough and dirty, and that's fine. Now, you're not supposed to push in and get it all took away at once without any chance to heal it back. And there's a nuance to this that I don't think a lot of players have really picked up. But what you lack in mobility, you make up for your firepower and influence. You can push people around the map, you can make cruisers kind of have to hide away from you, which helps your DDs a lot. And in some cases you can even be an AA fortress, you know, like Montana or something. It kind of depends. But main priority is tanking damage and knowing how to tank that damage, knowing when to take that damage and when you need to pull back and get some of your health going again, you know, so that you can get back into the fight maybe 2 or 3 minutes later, kind of refreshed, when everybody has maybe stopped focusing you so hard, and, you know, being able to not die so quickly, which even in a battleship can be pretty easy to do. As far as aircraft carriers go, they're more of a special class in that they share traits from some of the other classes, but they also don't. They play a completely different game almost to what a regular surface ship would play, and as a result of that, I'd like an episode to go over that in more detail. But basic rundown is you can provide the extreme spotting advantage and strike advantage through your aircraft, but unfortunately you only carry so many aircraft and you have no way of resupplying them as far as currently is allowed within the game. So as a result of this, you really have to know how to make your strikes count. Don't waste your planes on unnecessary actions, but don't keep them idling over your carrier for no reason or idling over open water. Make sure that you're trying to be as active as you possibly can, and be conservative if you have your doubts, but don't be passive. Now, some important skills to pick up. Obviously, knowing how to aim and shoot, knowing when to shoot, extremely important. That's how you're going to do damage, that's how you're going to kill ships. But, you know, you should be surprised at how many people maybe don't know how to aim at somebody that angles maybe the slightest bit away from them or starts kiting them, or, you know, it's kind of a thing that you have to pick up through, you know, being comfortable with your ballistics of your gun. Not every gun fires at the same velocity with the same arcs, and being comfortable with the ship that you're shooting at, because, you know, in much the way with gun velocity, not every ship sails the same and moves the same. Situational awareness on top of this is pretty important. It's good to lock yourself in on a target and really focus them down and get them killed and knock them out of the match. But if you get knocked out of the match in the process, you won't be able to provide that firepower anymore, and that can be a huge detriment to both your skill level and if the team wins or not. Don't tunnel vision. You know, allow yourself to look around in between shots, especially on something like a battleship, or incredibly importantly in destroyers. Don't let yourself overextend, and make sure that when you get into a position that you're looking around, you're making sure people aren't trying to flank you, or people don't have an angle on you that you might not expect, or you might not want them to have, and that could be extremely dangerous for you. Like, for example, right now on my mini-map, I see that there's a Minotaur up in the northeast corner of the map. He hasn't been spotted in forever, so he needs to be found and destroyed, obviously. And it's paying attention to his positioning that is extremely important, and making sure that I know that he's somewhere behind me, and I'm not just going to focus on what's on the other side of the map from me, down in their spawn. I'm focusing on myself as well, and focusing on what's around me, and making sure that I'm making the best plays as I can. And you hear me say positioning, 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 and it's super, super important as a skill, but it's the hardest skill to learn in terms of getting it right and getting it done consistently. It's something that is hard to pick up on because the idea of positioning changes between, you know, different ship lines, different ship classes, and even within the line itself, you can go from, you know, one ship to the next, tier 4 to tier 5, and your positioning, your strategy on that could be totally different. So it's a very hard skill to pick up on, and I will be happy to talk about that at a later date with a episode dedicated to how to position yourself better. Some important attitudes to have. You know, you want to basically go in with a positive mindset. Don't be negative about things, or try, you know, do your best, right? You're in here to play the game and have fun, but you're also in it to win. So you need to believe that you're going to have fun, and at the same time, you're going to win the game. You're not going to go into the game and be like, well, I'm going to have fun, but I'm not going to win, or I'm going to win, but I'm not going to have fun. You want to do both at all times, because why else would you play the game, right? You have the confidence in yourself to, you know that the judgment calls that you make are something that you can stick with. Like, for example, with the Minotaur versus the Zao here, I have the confidence to know that I'm gonna win that 1v1, or at least what looked like a 1v1 because I had a little bit of help with my friendly ships, you know, but I'm gonna have the confidence knowing in that even if I die, I'm gonna do as much damage as I can to my opponent. So, on playstyles, pick a playstyle that works for you. There's different ship lines, different classes, different national flavors. And it's basically just finding the best fit for you and what works for you rather than what works for the entire community. You can definitely adapt what works for the community to fit you, but make sure it fits you. Don't try to be a battleship main if you're not, okay with it, you're not comfortable with the idea of it. Don't be a cruiser main if you'd rather be an aircraft carrier. Like, be who you want to be and play how you want to play. But definitely, as far as playstyles go, try to adopt something that's maybe a bit smarter. Don't be too aggressive, don't be too passive. Try to find a good balance. And through balance and stuff, and positioning and all this other stuff, what really binds this all together and what makes this what would make all of these skills come together and make you a good player and go from a good player to a great player is being consistent. Any good player can have a really great game, and any good player can have a really bad game, but it's having a lot of really good games in a row and being able to consistently perform that makes the difference between a truly excellent player and somebody who's just kind of good every now and then. That comes through time and practice, just like positioning does, and that's not something that I can really teach. That's something that you have to practice and build upon with the skills that are presented to you, and some of the other resources that might be available to you. Build upon yourself, and know that it's going to be a bit of a progression, but you want to be as consistent as you can, and when you're performing to the best of your ability as often as possible. Best way to help yourself perform: get into a clan, get some friends, get a Discord, find community resources, reach out, get out there, help, find people that are aligned on a common cause, find people that are going to help you learn the game. And there's plenty of resources out there and available for doing just that. If you do need some sort of you don't need, let me rephrase this, there's all kinds of mods and other things in the game, and there's all kinds of other resources available to you, like the Wargaming Wiki and other little bits here and there, ship reviews, ship guides, etc. Go and find them. If you're truly planning to be a better player, you can always reach out and discover those. Now, that pretty much concludes this. I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible, but I think with my next episode, I'll cover probably destroyers, because it's one of the first ships I talked about, one of the first roles that I kind of went on about. And I'll discuss how to play them, what kind of play styles you can expect, and just some basic components and tips that will help you enhance your destroyer gameplay and take it to that next level from whatever you may be sitting at right now if you're not in the best position. Thank you for watching if you've been here this long. Like I said, I'm trying to keep this short, but I'm also ad-libbing it and doing this over replay, so it's kind of difficult. I don't have the best recording software, so any feedback would be appreciated. If there's more that you want me to talk about, or even less that you want me to talk about, then please let me know in the comments below, and share this around with your friends. Share this around with people that you think could use the extra help. And you know, if you have friends that are willing to get into the game, you know, maybe recruit them. You know, have somebody that you can really share that common goal of progressing through the game with. And it makes the game much more fun. So that pretty much concludes this. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.